Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me at tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. The direct purchase and pricing inquiry line from you to me and my crew for your questions about this or any watch you see here on Watchbox Reviews. That's tmosso@thewatchbox.com. The watch we're looking at today is a vintage Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch. This is the 145-02269, 42 millimeters in stainless steel. The watch measures 14.1 millimeters thick with that generously domed Hesa crystal, and 47.5 millimeters lug-to-lug with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. It's on a 1116 bracelet with 575 end links. I'm going to throw that on my wrist real quick so you can get a sense of how it wears. With hollow end links, it's a bit more compact than subsequent moon watches. Of course, this is what NASA would have used during the 1970s, so you're talking about a watch that is not just representative of a true era of spaceflight equipment, but in almost identical specifications. This watch is still used by NASA today, not just for spaceflight, but for spacewalks. The timepiece wears easily on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. You can see there's a little bit of a cantilever to the bezel. That means it probably won't fit underneath the tightest of dress cuffs, but any jacket cuff is more than clear. No hang-up danger right there. Now jump into the bracelet itself. You can see this is old school. Hollow end link. You can see there's a conforming end piece. You can see that there are hollow center links, and of course back then the bracelet would have used pins for sizing as opposed to the later screws, but rest assured, with a block and a punch, you can easily size this one at home. Now there is a folding clasp, and you'll appreciate that there are several divots drilled inside of the clasp to allow you to restation the bracelet, so you can use your strap tool to make sizing changes without actually using a punch or a block to size the bracelet itself. You can see the case is familiar. Lyre style lugs. This came about in late '64 with the first of the professional models, and as a result you have the 42 millimeter case size, and you also have a little bit of shear guards for the crown and the chronograph pushers. The Lyre style lugs bend inward as well as flow outward, so there's a double bend to them in and out, with the expanding bevel polished and then the mid case in satin finish. The bezel, as you can see, is anodized aluminum, and we're leaving this one. Obviously, as an Omega service center, we could replace it with factory spec if we wanted, but we think you would prefer the historical fabric, and that's how we're leaving this one for purchase. Now, of course, we can replace it once you own the watch, but we tend to let the beast lie where vintage is concerned. There is a Hesa crystal, and as you can see, it has the little Omega logo over the center. Hesa is a thermoplastic. NASA prefers it because though it scratches more easily than sapphire, it's almost impossible to shatter in the vacuum of space. You can't have fragments floating around in zero gravity. That would be hazardous. The dial, as you'll note, is tritium signed, and it features the vintage logo for the Omega marquee as well as the Speedmaster script. You have original tritium hands, and then you have dished registers for constant seconds as well as chronograph minutes and hours, and of course the timepiece featuring a matte base to resist glare. Inside the case, underneath, the distinctive hippocampus, caliber 861 based on the Lamagna 1873 Bausch, manual wind, 21,600 vibration per hour beat rate, 17 joules, 48-hour power reserve, and of course it is a cam and lateral clutch chronograph, which is surprisingly crisp for a cam action, but chosen by NASA above all because it is simply the most impact resistant and space durable option for a chronograph. So this is a tough movement as well as a distinguished movement, and in 1861 form, basically one more jewel and different colored bridges and plates, it's still flying today with NASA. So this is a hallowed movement and a hallowed watch. 50 meters water resistant. When it was new, I wouldn't test that theory approaching 50 years later. The bottom line is, this is a wonderful vintage daily driver. We're leaving as much of the original historic fabric intact as we can, and naturally the watch wears like a vintage piece, but because it's basically identical to 2020 spec, it also looks current, as it's basically the same aesthetic as the watch that NASA uses today, even as it represents a moment in time of 70s and 80s spaceflight. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.